Well, my name is Skip Mansfield, and I first came into this building in 1961, and I graduated out of here in '67. And since then, I've gotten married, and I've came back to work in this building as a library, not the custodian. I'm an occasional custodian in this building. I'm not the full-time custodian. But I've seen the building go from an elementary school to a library and experienced it.
Yeah. So do you live in the neighborhood?
Yes, I'm only a stone's throw over a couple of blocks. If you stood on the back stairs there, you could probably hit my house with a rock, so it's convenient.
Yeah, do you remember when the fire was here? Or that was probably before
Yeah,
you were born?
yeah, that was before my time, yeah. Was that the mid-'50s somewhere?
It was late, about 56, 57, around there.
Yeah,
So
so
if you
I was just a little guy.
Right. Yeah. So what could you tell us about the time you were here from kindergarten through fifth grade?
No, sixth grade. We were the last sixth grade class. No, that was with Parker Junior High. We were the last ninth grade class going out of there. So,
Okay.
but anyways, yeah, I was here from '61 to '67, and it was probably one of my more fun times in school. I think I enjoyed elementary school the most of everything, and it was an experience. With all the different teachers. It was the first coming of men teachers.
Oh, so you had some male role models.
Yes, yeah. I guess about fourth or fifth grade, they started coming, and Mr. Taloyan and Mr. Webb. And,
Mr. Webb was with us yesterday for the Teachers Lounge program.
Oh, what a nice guy. Real nice guy. Yeah, and when I first came here, my first grade teacher was Mrs. Weigel. And she was an older woman at the time. She only lasted a couple more years. Not lasted. She retired after a couple of years, I should clarify. But then most of my teachers, unfortunately, are no longer around anymore. But I see Mr. Webb and Mrs. Spracklin, I think.
Yes, Mrs. Spracklin was here yesterday also.
Yeah, and where we're sitting here, this used to be the principal's office. Mm-hmm. And
did you have to come down here?
Over 6 years, I made a couple visits down here. Yeah.
Are you a regular or just occasional?
No, just occasional. But I think probably one of my more memorable visits down here was when we were visiting Josh Wheaton School for the day, and someone dared me to stick a bobby pin in the outlet. And lost all the electricity on the first floor over at Josh Wheaton for a couple hours.
Why did you go to visit Josh Wheaton School?
Well, back then they used to have a school dentist, and the school dentist was located at Josh Wheaton School. And for 35 cents, the taxi cab came up here and picked you up, and 3 or 4 of us would be brought over to Josh Wheaton School to visit the school dentist. And for that 35 cents, 25 cents went to the taxi driver to pay the fare, and the other dime went to the dentist.
And what did the dentist do?
He'd do everything from drilling to filling, extractions. And that helped build my fear, dislike of dentists. Because remember the old pulley style drill.
Yes.
You could actually see smoke coming out of your mouth.
Oh, ouch.
So, but that was a good deal back then.
That's a big
35 cents.
Exactly. Yeah, so what other schools did you go to in Reading? Oh, sorry.
Between the question and whatever, just adjust that way.
So what other schools did you go to in Reading?
Well, I was
After this?
at Parker Junior High from '67 to '70, and then the Reading High from then on.
The old Reading High School.
The old Reading High, right? Yes.
And the old
Yep.
Parker.
Yes, yeah, they're all rebuilt now. They don't even. I go in there now. I have occasional overtime jobs in those other buildings, and I go into them, and I can't find my way around. It's just completely different. They're so much bigger. You turn a corner where there used to be a doorway, and now there's a wall.
Right.
But
So what do you remember anything about this building? And we've heard people talk about the smell of mittens drying on radiators, or Any specific things about
Well, that wouldn't surprise me because we had the old cast iron radiators in all the classrooms, and if you got your mittens wet out at recess or something, the teacher would surely let you put them on the radiator and dry them out. But we had coat rooms, and out in the corridor, out where the reference desk is now located, there used to be a day bed. And if you felt ill during the day and you needed to leave the classroom, you went down there and you laid down on the day bed, and they had one of those folding screens, and they put it out in front of you, and then every single kid that walked by would pop his head around that corner to see who's on the bed. So you had to, it was a toss-up. You had to be pretty sick to want to go out there and be on display.
the teachers would walk past as well?
Yes, yeah, because you were right out there in the middle of the corridor. The main corridor ran from one end of the building to the other with all the classrooms off of it.
And which were your classrooms, or were you all over the school? When you
Well, 6 years was, I was all over the place, but I guess I started out in the corner where the computer lab is now. That was my first grade classroom. And the second grade was right out here in the main area, and the third. And then the fourth grade. The first through fourth grade was located here on the first floor. And the fifth and sixth was up on the second floor.
Okay, so they separated you a bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. And the old cafeteria. Of course, I guess you'd call it what they call a cafetorium now.
Right.
Because it was everything. It was your auditorium, your cafeteria.
So did you actually eat your lunch up there, or did you take your tray back to the classroom?
No, they had folding tables, and you ate up there. And we were, it was usually your only time away from the teacher for 20 minutes or half an hour. But in second grade, we had this one teacher, Mrs. Castine. She used to go to lunch with us, and she'd actually sit at the table with us through the whole lunch and make sure that you didn't touch your dessert until after you finished your meal.
Oh, my goodness.
And if she caught you trying to eat your dessert, you'd get in trouble before you ate your meal.
Now, is she the Castine that we have Castine Field named for now? Do you know?
Yes, that was her younger brother, I believe. Her husband was George Castine, had the barber shop down in the Flatiron building at the corner of Gould and Haven. And the young fellow that used to work for George Castine is now known as Chief. And he has Chief's barber shop on Haven Street, and which him and his son run now. So.
You mentioned that you used to go out on the playground here. Did you play on the playground on the weekends too, being in the neighborhood?
Oh yeah. And there was no problem with that. The neighbors didn't worry about it. We used to play kickball out there all the time and ride our bikes around the building. So it's.
Was it paved, or was it just dirt?
It was always paved. It was always paved. It was kind of dangerous. There was a base paths marked out there for kickball. There wasn't any baseball allowed because the building was too close. And there was some a merry-go-round and some chin-up bars. The merry-go-round invokes it brings back a memory of, we had this really nice older woman. It was our third grade teacher, Mrs. Burgess, a little short, stocky woman, and she was nice. She was trying to be good to us one day, and she climbed onto the merry-go-round, and someone gave it a real hard twist, and she went flying off backwards, and they had to come out with ice for the back of her head. And there was quite a few calamities on that hot top out there.
Yeah, she survived, I assume.
Oh yeah, just a bump on the head,
Teacher in the mirror.
Right, yeah, right.
Yeah, I can imagine. They probably don't even allow them on playgrounds. They don't allow seesaws anymore.
No, well, I don't imagine they'd allow a paved parking lot to be a playground anyways nowadays.
It's all the rubber cut-up tires.
Nowadays, yes, yeah.
Playgrounds.
Yeah, nowadays they even round out the wood chips. They run them through a tumbler to take the edges off of them.
Protect ourselves.
Yeah.
Right. How is it now that you're back as part-time and assistant custodian in the building? Is there anything that's the same about the building that you remember?
Well, a lot of it is the same. A lot of it really is. I think they tried to keep the idea of the building the same, the antique ways about it, and the different Palladium style windows, and you look at the different stuff around, and it's It really is the same. It's just a missing doorway here or there. Of course, the walls that ran all the way down the corridor that divided the classrooms, those were all taken out to open it up. But it's pretty much the same. Pretty much, you know, downstairs with that low ceiling and those brick pillars all over the place. That was our gym. You know,
Right.
if the foul weather drove us inside, that's where we had to play, and it really limited it to either calisthenics or square dancing.
Oh, now someone else did mention square dancing.
Right.
Do you remember pads around the brick pillars?
Yeah, they tied pads around the outside of the brick pillars so that you know, when we were allowed to kind of try to play kickball down there, but you weren't allowed to kick it too hard. Or, you know, there were so many rules.
Right.
So
And the pipes above were, the drop ceiling wasn't there, so all the pipes. were
right, the
above.
heating pipes are all hanging out there where you could see them, and then there was windows all along the outside wall, which would be the parking lot now. And there was also down there, you had the men's room and the girls' room and the boys' room on either corner of the building. And when you walked down the bottom of the stairs, and the first thing you saw was a great big huge soapstone hand sink. And the teacher would go down with it because they'd get all down at once. And the teacher would come down, and she'd have to wait for you to come out, and then she'd turn on the water. And it would come spraying out all into this big around as this table, great big hand sink. And you wash your hands, and then she'd have to turn it back off up at the top. And I down at the end of the building from the where the boys' room is, was the boiler room entrance, and John Miller was the custodian back then. And it's funny because, you know, sometimes a little kid sees some kind of a weird job and just gets interested in it, and I always thought, boy, what a good job he had, you know. And here I am.
Is that still the same boiler down there that you remember as a kid?
No, the boilers, it's all changed. There was much bigger. The boiler room was a little bit bigger than it is because there's a office now for the custodian. And there was a little small boiler there that all the milk cartons went into. The lunch from the rubbish would go into there and get burnt. So it's the rubbish from the lunch.
Was it wood fired then?
No, we just had a separate furnace for burning the rubbish inside. And then there was the big furnace there for the building, but you could almost eat off that floor in that boiler room. John kept it so clean, and he'd go in there every couple of years and put a fresh coat of paint on the floor. And so it was nice. It was a nice boiler room to go in there and sit and talk to him, and every now and then he'd pull out the checkerboard and play a little bit of checkers with you.
Oh, that's
So
cool.
yeah,
I sort of look at that boiler room as it is today, and it always reminds me of the story of Mike Mulligan and the steam shovel, where he went in and they dug the foundation, couldn't get the steam shovel out, so they converted it into the boiler heat for the building.
yeah. Yeah, I don't understand why they did that, but that was always hollowed out down deeper than the rest of the building where the boiler was located. But it was a fun 6 years.
So as a custodian in this building, how do you see it? Is it up to date, or does it need help?
Oh no, it's not up to date. It needs a lot of help. It needs a lot of money. You know, it's the windows. All the windows need to be replaced. A lot of the walls need to come down and be replaced. It's just I have no idea what the heating bill is for this building, but it must be phenomenal.
Because of the leak.
There's no insulation to speak of except for in the attic. You know, the walls aren't insulated. You know, the floors are all creaky and crooked and warped, and it's, you know, it really needs a lot of attention.
Were you here when the installation workman went through the attic floor and his leg came into the children's room?
No, I wasn't in the building at the time, but I had heard about it, yes. And I was probably not too far from that happening to myself on a couple of occasions, having to get around up there.
Right.
Yeah.
Not a complete floor and
No.
lots of things that have to be
No,
tended to.
there's a lot of attic up there that could be used, and it's not being utilized. So.
Well, I gathered that it had dormers on it with windows before the fire.
Right,
From
yeah.
pictures, you
Yeah.
can see there were windows at either end.
Yes, and it was a nice look there. It was a nice slate roof, and it was,
Oh, really?
yes,
Great.
yeah, and they had some kind of like little finials up there and stuff. It was quite a nice building in its day.
Yeah. Tell us about the view from the roof of the library. I've never been up there, but I know
Oh,
you guys go up.
yeah, you can see all the way to Boston. You can on a clear day you can see Boston Harbor. It's nice. It's a nice view.
Right up from the top. Well, is there anything else you want to tell us about this dear old building as it is today, you know, the library and before when it was a school?
No, it is a dear building to me. It's, you know, a lot of memories, and I was, when I was a child, I always we used to hang around on the stairs on the weekends, and I always said, boy, if I was rich, I'd buy this and turn it into my house, and, you know, have a mansion.
Yeah.
But of course that never came to. But it's a beautiful building. I'd really like to see something happen to it, and get it utilized the right way, get it fixed up, and make it so that we can afford to run it, and you can have the computers that you want in the building, and you know, it just needs to be used right.